Hello, and welcome to the sleepy universe. You're not in a hurry now. The day has softened, the light has dimmed, and somewhere between one breath and the next, you've made space for wonder. This is not a lecture, not a lesson. This is a quiet invitation to drift through the strange, beautiful truth of everything. Each chapter a doorway, each moment a pause. You'll travel far tonight, across stars, through neurons, into myths and molecules, but not all at once, just gently, thoughtfully, like a dream you choose to stay awake for, because you're not just in the universe, you are a way for the universe to know itself. So rest easy, let curiosity be your guide, and let's begin. You lie back in the soft hush of evening, the weight of the day slowly lifting. The sky above is clear, the kind of dark that glows, not black, but a deep, endless blue that seems to hum. There are stars tonight, some bright and eager, others faint, like ancient thoughts. You watch them quietly, letting your mind wander, past their sparkle, beyond their distance. As you lie there, you begin to wonder, not urgently, not as a scientist hunting answers, but gently, as if your thoughts are feathers caught on a breeze. What are these stars, really? What do they hold? Are they lonely, or are they surrounded by companions we cannot see? You close your eyes for a moment and picture each one as a sun, not unlike our own, burning steadily in the vastness. Around them, perhaps, spin small, silent planets, cold ones, warm ones, maybe even ones like this. The air is still, but your thoughts drift. You imagine these other worlds with oceans, or mountains, or skies of green. You imagine clouds that smell of sulfur and winds that sing in strange tones. You imagine nothing at all, just the idea of something, somewhere, spinning slowly, under a foreign sun. It's not just about life, you realize. It's about the possibility of place, of presence, of otherness. You open your eyes again and look up. The stars do not answer your questions, but maybe they are not meant to. Maybe their job is only to remind you that the universe is larger than your thoughts and older than your worries. Maybe they whisper in light, keep asking, and so you do. What is a planet, really? We grow up thinking they are only the ones we've memorized from school. Mercury, Venus, Earth, and the rest, each with a name and a place. But out here, under this sky, you begin to understand they are more than names. Planets are stories. In orbit, they are experiments in gravity. They are echoes of collisions, dreams of dust becoming something more. You think of Earth, this world beneath your back, this planet that holds you, feeds you, moves you gently through space. It spins while you sleep and circles the sun without pause. It holds water and sky, mountains and cities. It breathes in its way, and suddenly it seems so unlikely, so rare, not because it is alone, but because it exists at all. You remember the old stories, the ones people used to tell before they knew better, of crystal spheres and lights hung like lanterns. But now we know the stars are suns, and some of those suns hold planets, and some of those planets might hold something, water, wind, warmth, perhaps even wonder. You roll the thought over like a stone in your hand. What if the sky above is not empty but full, not of answers, but of invitations? What if every point of light is a question waiting to be asked? Not a quiz, but a poem. Not a riddle, but a possibility. Above you, the stars begin to shift. Not really, of course, but in your mind, they become closer, almost personal. You feel their age and distance. Some of that light left its star before humans lit their first fire, before the first whisper of a name was spoken. Before you, before now, that light has been traveling across the universe just to land here, on your eyes, in this moment. It humbles you, and it also stirs something deeper. You feel the pull, the quiet gravity of curiosity. Why are we drawn to the stars? Is it because they are unreachable, or because they are the mirrors of our own beginnings? Perhaps it's something simpler. They are the only thing that has always been there, watching, burning, waiting. You take a breath, cool air fills your lungs, and with it comes the soft realization. We are not separate from the stars. We are made of the same elements, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, all born in the hearts of long-dead suns. The iron in your blood was forged in fire more ancient than time itself. You are not just looking at the universe. You are the universe looking back. The breeze shifts. Leaves rustle gently above you. Somewhere far away, a satellite glides silently across the sky. We've reached out, just barely, with metal arms and radio waves. We've sent whispers into the dark, tiny golden records filled with music and math, in hopes that someone might listen. We've mapped the orbits of exoplanets we cannot yet see. We've guessed, with great care, at the nature of distant atmospheres. Still, there is so much we do not know, and that's okay, because knowing isn't the only path to connection. Sometimes, wondering is enough. The sky does not need to be solved. To be beautiful, the stars do not need names to be meaningful. Tonight, they simply are, and so are you. You imagine what it might feel like to stand on another world, to watch a sunrise in a sky with two suns, to look up and see Earth as just a speck of light, distant, small, and precious. Would it feel like loss, or like wonder? The questions keep coming, not as burdens, but as gifts. They don't push for answers. They float. They shimmer. What makes a planet feel like home? Is it gravity, air, familiar skies? Or is it something quieter, like the ability to dream while lying still? Your eyes grow heavier, lulled by the rhythm of your thoughts, the gentle hush of the world around you. The stars continue their silent shimmer. Nothing urgent, nothing loud, just the slow, steady hum of the cosmos, stretching beyond comprehension, yet somehow never out of reach. You wonder what lies in the space between stars. Not just the distance, but the meaning, the silence, the unseen, and that, perhaps, is where the story truly begins. You feel yourself floating now, not leaving your body, but sinking into something larger, a current of curiosity that stretches far beyond this moment, beyond this sky. You ask again, not with words, but with your breath, what else is out there? And quietly, invisibly, something begins to answer, not with noise, but with movement, a flicker, a pulse, a shadow. It starts with a question, yes, but soon it becomes a search. You begin again, eyes closed, this time floating softly through a sky you cannot see, but somehow feel. There is a quiet rhythm here on unseen architecture. You drift among stars, not just as points of light now, but as anchors of orbit, as storytellers. Some stars pulse, some wander, some remain steady, and still, like lanterns hung in deep space. But not all of them are alone. You begin to notice something different, subtle sways, a kind of cosmic hesitation in their paths, like a breath held and then exhaled, a pause, a wobble. It's in that wobble that the whisper begins. The universe doesn't shout its secrets. It hints, it leans, it flickers, and somewhere, in a lab filled with quiet machines and blinking lights, a scientist watches that flicker. A single star dims just slightly, just for a moment, tanned brightens again. Nothing much, nothing flashy, but it's enough. A planet, they think. One more world, unseen but real. You travel there not to the planet, but to the moment it is. Revealed, you float inside the light of that star, watching it stutter, ever so slightly. A small, steady body has passed in front of it. A transit. One orbit, like a footstep across the star's face. We measure it, time it, confirm it. A new world. You feel the elegance of it. We do not need to see the planet directly. The light tells us. The light is honest. These are exoplanets. Planets beyond our solar system. Worlds orbiting other suns. And they are everywhere. You pass another star now. This one tugged gently to the side. Not by wind, but by gravity. A kind of leaning, pulled by a companion we cannot see. It loops and sways, a dance choreographed by mass and distance. And there again, we know, there must be something circling, something with weight, something that pulls back. This is the radial method, the Doppler shift. A star's movement tells us what orbits it. You listen closely to that shift not as sound, but as color. Red to blue, blue to red. The invisible wave of movement becomes your lullaby. You feel the orbit like a heartbeat, slow and steady. A planet. Is there, not guessed, not imagined, but measured. You begin to understand. The cosmos is full of these silent conversations. Stars speaking in flickers and shifts. Planets responding in silence. Light becomes a language. Gravity becomes music. You float deeper into this star field. It no longer feels empty. Each point glows with possibility. Some stars cradle multiple planets, like a family circling a hearth. Others hold one lone wanderer in a tight ellipse. Some orbits are fast and wild. Others drift wide, slow as centuries. The variety is breathtaking. There are hot Jupiter's gas giants hugging their stars so closely their atmospheres boil. There are cold Neptunes drifting in dim twilight, their clouds dense and cold. There are rocky super-Earths, larger than ours, with dense cores and thick atmospheres. All of them unseen, all of them known. You begin to wonder, if we can learn so much from just a flicker, what more is waiting to be revealed? You float past a star where the light dims every 34 days, like clockwork. A planet, yes, but maybe more, maybe moons, maybe clouds, maybe rings. The data is small, but the implications are vast. We find patterns, we trace shadows, we watch again and again for certainty, and in that patient repetition we see planets emerge. Your journey is slow, but it doesn't feel long. Time here is folded. With each star you collect a new shape, a new orbit, a new kind of silence. Some stars flicker more often, dozens of planets, perhaps circling in tight harmony. Others remain stubborn, hiding their companions behind glare and distance. Still, the methods work. The whispering stars cannot keep their secrets forever. You feel the progress of our instruments. Once we could only guess. Now we measure with such precision we can detect the slight tilt of a star shifting just meters per second. A star like our Sun, if tugged by Earth alone, would wobble at just 9 centimeters per second, slower than a walking pace, and yet measurable. That's How careful we have become. That's how well we listen. You pass through a cloud of data, now real and imagined. Graphs and curves, signal and noise. You watch as an exoplanet is found not once, but twice, by two methods at once. The transit confirms the Doppler shift, the flicker confirms the pull, and suddenly the world becomes real, named, catalogued, studied, but not touched. Not yet. You pause beside one of them, just numbers on a page to some, but to you it feels like standing in a shadow. You imagine the planet orbiting steadily, unaware of our attention. It circles its star without urgency, as if time is just. Another force, gentle and sure. You wonder, does it have clouds, wind, a sky? And though you cannot see it, you feel it in your chest, that pulse of presence, the knowing that something is there. It is a kind of magic, except it is not magic, it is science. Careful, repeated, beautiful science. You drift again, this time with purpose. You now know what to look for. Wobbles, flickers, pulls, every star. You pass feels like a mystery you've already begun to unwrap. They don't shine for us, not really, but they do speak. And we, at last, are learning to listen. The sky no longer feels still. It feels alive, filled with movement, secrets, partners. Every star might hold a system of its own, and every system might hold a world where someone else lies beneath their sky, wondering if they too were alone. You pause with that thought. It's not about finding life yet, it's about finding place. Proof that our kind of orbit, our kind of warmth, is not unique, and the numbers say it's true. Tens of billions of planets, just in our galaxy. Many the size of Earth, many in the habitable zone. Not too hot, not too cold, just right, like a whispered memory. You exhale. The sky above your world is just one voice in a crowded choir. The cosmos hums with possibility, and now that you've heard it, you cannot unhear it. It starts with light, not the kind that warms your face on a sunny morning, but ancient light, cold and distant. Light that has traveled across time to reach us. You begin to realize every beam, every photon carries a message, but the message is not loud. It must be coaxed, interpreted, unfolded. You're not looking through a telescope now. You're listening, not with ears, but with instruments tuned so precisely they can feel a shift in a star's breath, a pause in its flicker, a bend in its rhythm. This is how we find the unseen. You drift into a space not of planets themselves, but of their echoes. Each detection method is a kind of fingerprint, a soft indentation left behind by something massive, silent, and too far to see. You are not frustrated by the distance. You are fascinated by the elegance of our reach. We begin with transits, simplest of shadows. You imagine a planet crossing in front of its star, blocking a tiny fraction of the light, just a dip. A whisper in the star's brightness. No picture, no color. Just a curve on a graph. You picture it now, clean and quiet. Brightness over time, a gentle dip, then a return. That is a planet, or at least the hint of one. Your mind builds the shape. If the dip is deep, the planet is large. If it is long, the planet is far from its star. If it happens again and again, it is in orbit. You begin to see what the graph is hiding. You're not just reading data, you're watching an orbit unfold in silence. You trace it with your mind, a slow arc, repeating like a breath. Then comes the Doppler method. Not light blocked, but light stretched. As a planet tugs on its star, the star wobbles, just a little, toward us, then away. The light shifts in color, bluer when approaching, redder when receding. The effect is tiny, a change in velocity as small as a walking pace. But the instruments know, they hear the shift. You hear it too, now not as pitch, but as change, a signature, a wave that the planet pulls, the star yields. And from that gentle dance, we infer mass, orbit, even shape. You marvel at the balance. We do not need to see the planet directly to know it is there. We listen to what it does to its star. That ripple becomes a clue. You float now through a deeper method. Here, a planet's mass bends the light of a background star, like a lens made of gravity itself. It is rare, brief, but unmistakable. You imagine light bending not in curves you can see, but in paths that change the brightness of a star behind it. A blink, a flare, then gone. One event, one planet, never seen again, but real. And then there's direct imaging. You smile because this one feels bold. Not inference, but confrontation. A telescope blocks the star's overwhelming glare, like holding a hand against the sun. And in the quiet edges, we sometimes glimpse a dot, a glow, a world you. Picture it now, a speck of light beside a brighter speck. Not a photo in the human sense, no clouds, no oceans, but still a planet, captured by light dot. It took us centuries to reach this point. You drift among the tool space telescopes, cooled to near absolute zero. Spectrographs so sensitive they can detect the chemical breath of an atmosphere. You listen to starlight being split into colors, like a beam passed through a prism. You see the lines now, dark lines, absorbed wavelengths, signatures, and suddenly a planet's atmosphere is not invisible. It's readable. You float through. Carbon dioxide, water vapor, methane, not as molecules, but as gaps in color. The light has passed through something. It leaves clues behind. You begin to feel the depth of our reach. From 100 light years away, we can guess whether a planet has clouds, or heat, or even, someday, the scent of biology, all from light. You think about how strange this is, how human, to look at something we cannot touch, cannot visit, and still draw it in our mind with such care. It is not wishful, it is mathematical, it is precise, and it is beautiful. You drift now toward TESS, the transiting exoplanet survey satellite. You watch as it sweeps across the sky in wide, deliberate arcs, watching thousands of stars at once. Its data falls like rain, steady, patient, full of potential. Then you pass Kepler, retired, yes but not forgotten. You visit its archive, a library of light curves and probabilities. Kepler found thousands of planets. It changed our sense of scale. It told us that Earth-like planets are not rare, just hard to see. And now you float toward James Webb Telescope that doesn't just see, but listens in infrared. You feel its warmth not from heat, but from the glow of planets far away. Webb can read atmospheres. It can see through dust. It can touch the untouchable with clarity. Each tool has its gift, each method its mystery. You begin to see them not as separate instruments, but as a chorus. Together, they form a map not of stars, but of worlds. A universe once thought empty now feels thick with presence. You imagine an exoplanet revealed for the first time not to the eye, but to the mind. A researcher looks at a curve on a graph and smiles. A dip, a wobble, a pattern. A world. The map grows, and with every new planet, we refine the art of listening, not just to light, but to timing, to silence, to echoes. You feel the humility in it, the patience required, the years spent waiting for one more dip, the caution, the rigor, the joy that we do not leap to conclusions. We orbit them, and slowly, the invisible becomes known. You are drifting now, not through space, but through knowing, through the quiet conviction that something is there. It is not faith, it is not hope, it is evidence, and it begins with light. The idea of Earth is so familiar, it's easy to forget how specific it is. You lie still, imagining the recipe that makes your world what it is, not just a rock in space, but a place that holds you. There is nothing extravagant about it, and yet everything must align. The ingredients are quiet, but precise, begin with distance. You drift into the space between stars and planets, the habitable zone, it's called, not too close, not too far, just the right distance for liquid water to exist. You feel the warmth of a sun, gentle but persistent, warming a planet enough to melt ice, but not boil oceans. You float within this band of possibility, and suddenly it seems narrow, fragile. Move a planet just a little closer, and its seas evaporate into sky. Move it farther out, and they freeze into silence. Earth, you realize, balances perfectly. But distance alone isn't enough. You need air and atmosphere, something to hold heat, protect against radiation, carry sound and scent. You imagine Earth's atmosphere now, wrapping you like a breath. Oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, just enough to warm, not too much to smother and pressure. The atmosphere must press gently, evenly. Too thin, and your blood would boil. Too thick, and nothing delicate could breathe. You begin to see the detail in the design. Not intelligent design, no blueprint, but a kind of evolutionary balance, a quiet tuning over time and water. Not just water, but liquid water. You drift through oceans, rivers, clouds. You picture water as the great connector, moving heat, dissolving minerals, shaping land. You know now it's not just a substance, it's a medium for life. On Earth it rains, freezes, steams. It fills lungs and cells. It cycles, it remembers you. Wonder, does it do that elsewhere? And then there is a magnetic field, a shield spun from the molten iron heart of Earth, deflecting solar wind, holding our atmosphere in place. Without it, air would escape, peeled away by radiation. Mars, you recall, once had an atmosphere. Now it has silence. You think of plate tectonics, the slow dance of Earth's crust, recycling land, building mountains, stirring nutrients from sea to shore. Without it, continents would stagnate, oceans would settle, life would run out of room to grow. And a moon, Earth has one, perfectly sized to steady our tilt. That tilt gives us seasons, variety, change. Without the moon, the axis might wander, throwing climate into chaos. The pieces begin to gather. You see them not as parts of a machine, but as layers of a song. Temperature, air, water, magnetism, motion, light, each playing in tune with the others. No soloist, no conductor, just harmony. And yet, with all this, Earth could still be lifeless. The ingredients are necessary, but not sufficient. Something more had to happen. Time, you float through deep time, now billions of years. You feel the slow unfolding. Planets need patience. Chemistry needs repetition. Evolution requires silence between pulses. Life does not appear in an instant. It brews, it learns. We search for that same balance elsewhere. When we find an exoplanet in the habitable zone, we celebrate. But we know it's only the beginning. A good address does not guarantee a good home. You visit one such planet new in your mind, in your imagining. It is Earth-sized, Earth-shaped, orbiting a quiet sun. It has an atmosphere, maybe even water, and yet it might be barren. No countenance, no life, or perhaps not yet. You begin to realize how little we can see, and yet how much we can hope. This is the search for Earthlike. But what does that really mean? Is it chemistry, temperature, gravity that feels familiar beneath your feet? Or is it something softer, like the ability to imagine living there? You think about clouds. You picture looking up and seeing something move. You imagine breathing air without a helmet, digging your hands into soil, hearing wind in the trees if there are trees. You imagine the sound of rainfall on alien ground, the first footprints, the first seed planted. These are human dreams, but they are also scientific questions. We search for the spectrum of starlight to show signs of water vapor, oxygen, methane. We look for imbalance, a signature of life. Life changes its environment. Earth breathes differently because of trees, because of plankton, because of us. We look for that kind of breath elsewhere. You begin to see Earth not just as home, but as model. We ask, where else is the balance right? And in asking that, we come to understand our planet more deeply. We learn how rare our air is, how delicate our warmth, how improbable our stability. It does not frighten you. It humbles you. Earth is not perfect, but it is possible. And if it is possible once, it may be possible again. You feel the pull now of gravity, but of recognition. Each exoplanet we study becomes a mirror, reflecting back the specifics of what Earth is. The thickness of our air, the chemistry of our clouds, the spectrum of our light. We search for echoes, not duplicates. You begin to think that maybe Earthlike does not mean identical. Maybe it means welcoming. Maybe it means capable of becoming familiar. The ingredients of life are common: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen. They drift through space, tucked into comets, hidden in clouds of gas. It's the arrangement that's rare, the melody, the pause between notes, and so we listen. You drift back now, slowly, to your own world, your own sky. You inhale and feel the atmosphere wrap around you. You hear the wind stir leaves. You taste moisture in the air. You feel warmth beneath your skin, and you know with certainty what earthliness means. It is not just the presence of life, it is the permission to imagine it. You begin beneath the surface. There is no land here, no sky, only depth. An endless ocean stretching across an entire world. You drift through its currents, not as a swimmer, but as a thought, quiet, curious, weightless. This is not Earth. This is a water world, an exoplanet, covered completely by ocean. No continents break the waves, no mountains rise. Beneath you, liquid moves in silence, stirred not by wind, but by the tug of gravity from a nearby moon, or perhaps by heat from below a planetary core still warm from its formation. You can't see the surface anymore. It's gone, replaced by shadow. Yet this world is not cold, not dead. You feel motion, layers of water moving at different speeds, tides not governed by sunlight, but by the orbit of unseen moons, and deep beneath, where light never touches, heat seeps from vents, volcanic fissures opening slowly, releasing minerals, warmth, energy. You think of Earth's own deep oceans, places where life exists without sunlight. At hydrothermal vents, strange creatures thrive, nourished by chemistry, not photosynthesis. Tube worms, bacteria, tiny ecosystems wrapped around warmth in darkness. Could that happen here? You imagine it, a world without land, without sky. Life beginning not in shallow seas, but in trenches miles deep. Not powered by stars, but by stone. Not guided by day and night, but by tide and heat. You don't need to picture the creatures, not yet. Just the possibility. You drift upward now, through miles of liquid sky. You imagine clouds above, dense, heavy, tinted with color from alien minerals. Maybe sunlight filters through in soft blue or sharp green. Or maybe the clouds are too thick, and the world below lives in perpetual twilight. Still, the ocean holds heat, it holds movement, and movement, you remember, is often the beginning of life. You visit Europa now, one of Jupiter's moons, small, icy, cold, but beneath its frozen shell is an ocean vast, salt water, wrapped in ice, kept warm by the flex of gravity as it orbits its giant host. Earth-size oceans, trapped beneath silence. We've never touched it, but we believe it's there. You float through its darkness, not afraid, just listening. You imagine the cracking of the ice above, the pressure of miles of water pressing down. In the stillness, you imagine chemistry stirring, not life, perhaps, but the whisper of it. Then, in Enceladus, another moon, smaller still, geysers burst from its surface, spraying vapor and ice into space. We've flown through those plumes. We've tasted them with instruments, salty, organic, promising. The ocean is beneath the crust, hidden but not silent. You think of exoplanets, now bigger, older, wetter than these moons. Whole planets with subsurface seas, or thick water atmospheres, or ice-covered oceans kept warm by radioactive decay. Not Earthlike, not land and sky, but wet and water, you know, is the common thread. You begin to let go of Earth as a blueprint. Instead, you hold on to water as a possibility. A water world could be a paradise, or a trap. Too much ocean and carbon may never cycle. Too deep and pressure could crush complexity. But somewhere in the middle, somewhere balanced between heat and depth, life might begin. Not with lungs or leaves, but with membranes, with chemical hunger, with adaptation. You ask yourself, must life have light? Must it breathe air? Or could it begin in darkness, in silence, with nothing but heat and salt and time? You don't need to answer, you just need to keep asking. You rise now, imagining the horizon. Would there be waves? Storms? Would the planet shimmer from space, cloud-wrapped in blue, or grey, or silver? Would there be any way to land? Or would our ships float, drift, sink? You picture explorers arriving not to set foot, but to send down probes, to listen to the deep, to test for motion, for chemistry, for imbalance, for life. And what would life be here? Soft, resilient, bound by pressure and patience. Life that doesn't see but feels, that doesn't breathe but reacts. Life that knows warmth even without sun. You wonder if such life would ever know the stars, or care. You move again, this time toward GJ 1-1 for beer. Super Earth, 30 light-years away. Astronomers believe it may be a water world, its atmosphere thick and steamy, You pass through its clouds, now dense and wet. Below, you feel warmth, vapor, weight. It is not comfortable, but it is possible. Its ocean could be hundreds of kilometers, deep, far deeper than any on Earth. A sea beneath steam, presu unimaginable. And still, maybe, something stirring in the depths. You are not imagining cities, not even creatures, just molecules, moving, replicating, starting the long, slow story of life. You think of how quiet this process would be. No language, no intention, just complexity arising, piece by piece, in darkness. A different kind of genesis. You drift again, carried by current, by thought. You let go of the need to recognize you. Allow this world to be what it is, salient, wet, unseen. You realize we don't need life to look like us. We just need it to be. Water is a good place to start. It holds heat, dissolves nutrients, shelters molecules, and when we find it beneath, ice in vapor, wrapped around stone, we feel something stir in us. Hope you lie back now, eyes closed, and feel your own body, mostly water, your blood, your breath, your tears. You are not separate from these water worlds. You are a version of them, made in fluid, alive in liquid. You think of Earth again not as a planet, but as an ocean with islands, and suddenly the others do not feel so strange. They are not imitations, they are siblings. You end this drift not with certainty, but with possibility. The oceans we cannot touch may never touch us, but they change us. They expand what we think life could be. They invite us to dream without land. And so we do. You arrive with weight, not your own, but the world's. It presses beneath your feet, heavier than Earth's embrace. This is a super-Earth larger than your planet, more massive, its gravity, pulling harder on every step, every breath, every thought. You do not resist it. Instead, you lean into the gravity. Let it ground you. Let it reshape what you expect. This planet is rocky, solid. Not a gas giant, not an ocean wrapped in vapor, but land. Its crust is thick. Its surface, perhaps, still cooling. You feel the heat deep below a planet alive with motion. Plate tectonics may be more active here. The pressure beneath more urgent. You walk, or imagine walking. Each step is slower, more deliberate. Your muscles work harder. The horizon curves closer. The sky feels tighter. Gravity bends everything inward, even the air. You wonder, would trees grow shorter here, stouter? Would mountains crumble under their own weight? Would rivers carve deeper paths through denser soil? You picture a landscape shaped not just by erosion, but by mass. Everything here feels familiar, and yet not. You think of Earth's mountains, but this planet might not reach so high. You imagine hills instead broad, rolling, weathered down by the sheer pull of gravity. You think of Earth's clouds, but here the air might be thick, pressurized, holding heat closer to the ground. Sunlight might filter through as a glow, not a shine. You picture color, not blue skies, but copper, or gray, or emerald green, if strange minerals tint the atmosphere. The sky might feel close, not oppressive, but intimate. You pause on a ridge just, a mental one, and look out. What grows here? If plants evolve, they might hug the ground, low and wide, built for pressure, or perhaps they stretch upward with dense, fibrous strength, pulling sunlight from a star that's a little redder, a little cooler than your own. You imagine wind slower, heavier, curling through stone valleys like breath. held too long. Everything is deeper here. The weight of silence, the depth of soil, the strength of gravity as a sculptor. You lie down on the ground, not tired, but curious. You feel the planet's pulse through stone. You imagine its magnetic field, its orbit, its day and night. Some super-Earths spin slowly, some quickly. Some are tidally locked one side, always facing their star, the other wrapped in endless night. You visit one like that now. Half a world scorched in eternal daylight. The other half frozen and still, but in between a line. A twilight band where temperature softens, where wind circulates, where life might settle. You walk that edge. The light is slanted, permanent. Dusk, shadows never shift. The sky glows softly, and you wonder, could forests grow here? Could rivers flow from light to dark? Would creatures migrate in circles, forever following the warmth? You let the idea unfold slowly. No rush, no conclusions. Just the possibility of life shaped by rhythm we cannot imagine. You leave that world and drift to another. This one spins. Fast its day, just a few hours long. Winds whip across the surface, sculpting dunes, battering rock. Storms circle the globe like clockwork. Here, life must hold on tightly, or move quickly, or hibernate, waiting for calm. You think of creatures burrowing into rock, of spores drifting in high winds, of survival measured in patience, not speed. You drift now to a super-Earth with a thick atmosphere, twice, maybe 3 times. The pressure of Earth's, you breathe it in, not literally, but in mind. The air presses down on you like warm water. Sound carries differently. Light scatters in strange ways. You see halos around the sun, rainbows without rain. Would flight be easier here, with denser air, or harder, under heavier gravity? You imagine life adapted to this pressure, lungs shaped differently, movement slowed, cautious, calculated, and yet alive. You rise again, now high above a super-Earth wrapped in clouds. You cannot see its surface, just a white swirl of storms and weather. But beneath rock land, continents, perhaps lakes, forests, we can't know, not yet. But the possibility is real. These planets are not Earth, but they are not empty. They challenge your assumptions about what gravity means, about what life requires, about what landscapes could feel like. You realize super-Earth is not a promise of similarity. It is a statement of size. Beyond that, each one is its own story. You return now to our instruments, our methods, the way we infer mass from a star's wobble, the way we calculate radius from a shadow. Put them together and we get density, and from density we guess. Rock or gas, water or metal. Sometimes we're right, often we're wrong, but each guess makes the next one better. You float now above one such planet, Kepler 4-5 to be, once called Earth's cousin. It's bigger, older, in a similar orbit around a sun-like star, but the details are unknown. Atmosphere, unknown. Oceans, unknown. Life, unknown, but something about it still pulls us, not because it is Earth, but because it is not, because it offers contrast, a way to test our ideas, a place where familiar laws meet unfamiliar outcomes. You return again to the question, what makes a planet feel like home? Maybe it's not the gravity, not the temperature, not even the air. Maybe it's the sense that life could adapt, that footsteps could one day fall, here not in haste, not in conquest, but in quiet wonder. You stand on one last ridge, real or imagined, and look up. The stars here are different, but they shine, they shimmer, they call. You feel the planet beneath you solid, strange, strong. You feel the universe holding you not gently, but firmly, and still you breathe. The world fades again not because you are leaving, but because light itself is fading. You drift outward, away from temperate orbits and gentle warmth, past the familiar, into the deep. Here, stars grow faint, planets grow cold, and yet your curiosity burns brighter. Not all life, you now realize, needs comfort. Some life begins at the edge. Temperatures plunge, radiation spikes, and chemistry veers into the strange. These places are not kind, but they are possible. You begin with cold. True cold. Planets far from their stars, where heat is a memory. You picture methane seas, nitrogen fog, crusts of frozen carbon dioxide. Worlds like Titan, Saturn's moon, where rivers flow not with water, but with liquid hydrocarbons. On Earth, this would be deadly. But on Titan, it's normal. The chemistry is slower, thicker, richer in carbon. You imagine life not based on water, but on methane. Not fast, not warm, but real. It would move like syrup, think like snow. It would not need oxygen. It might never evolve eyes, but it could still respond, still grow, still change. You drift now to even colder places, rogue planets, cast out of their star systems. Alone in the dark, they wander through interstellar space. No sun, no sky, just internal heat. Yet some might still hold oceans beneath thick crusts of ice, warmed from within. It is the idea of warmth, not the source, that matters. Then you turn toward heat. Some planets are scorched. Their surfaces cook at hundreds of degrees. Their skies boil. Their rocks glow red. You'd think life would run from this. And yet, on Earth, we find microbes thriving in volcanic vents, in hot springs, in the deep crust. Extremophiles, we call them, lovers of extremes. They do not just survive, they thrive. Some eat sulfur, some breathe iron, some live in acid, others in radiation zones that would shred DNA in seconds. You realize Earth is not all Earth-like. Parts of it already echo alien conditions, and life, it seems, is good at adapting. You float now over a super-Earth with a thick, toxic atmosphere. Maybe it's full of carbon dioxide, or sulfur clouds, or even heavier gases we've never seen. To us, unbreathable, but not necessarily unlivable. What if life uses a different metabolism? What if respiration is not about oxygen, but about redox? Balance electron flow through molecules we don't yet associate with biology. What if life is chemistry before it is biology? You let that thought linger. It's not about cells, not yet. It's about structure, reaction, replication, the ability to carry information, to resist entropy however briefly. You realize now, life doesn't require kindness. It requires opportunity, a stable niche, an energy source, a way to self-organize. You drift through clouds of sulfuric acid, like those on Venus, hot, high pressure, corrosive. Yet scientists have proposed that microbial life might float in Venus's upper atmosphere just beneath the acidic clouds, where temperatures soften, even on a planet often called hell. There is a maybe. That's all life needs. A maybe, you remember. Now that we've found bacteria on Earth that can survive space, in vacuum, in radiation, frozen for years, then revived, we are more resilient than we think. You remember now that we've found bacteria on Earth that can survive space, in vacuum, in radiation, frozen for years, then revived. We are more resilient than we think. And so, perhaps, are others. You move toward the edges of atmosphere, new thin, strange skies that shift rapidly. Some exoplanets orbit red dwarf stars that flare violently, blasting radiation across the surface. Their planets might be tidally locked, one side scorched, one side frozen, but in between a twilight band, a narrow zone of survivability, a sliver of balance, hiding in chaos. You imagine life that stays in that band, slowly drifting, always chasing calm, and still, beyond all this planets we cannot classify, made of carbon, or helium, or silicates that behave like metal under pressure. Planets with diamond crusts, or ammonia rain, or magnetic fields that roar like engines. We may never visit, but we may listen. You think now not about life like us, but about the definition of life itself. Is it replication? Is it metabolism? Is it memory? Could life begin in forms we don't yet recognize? In plasma clouds, in magnetic fields, in cycles of light and shadow on particles we haven't named? You don't know, but you know enough not to say no. You return briefly to Earth, not to its forests or oceans, but to its caves, its mines, its boiling pools. You remember that life here has colonized every niche it could, not just where it's easy, but where it's almost impossible. And then, as you float back outward, you realize the edge of possibility is not a border, it's a horizon, one that moves slowly every time we learn more. There is no surface here, no edge, no floor, only a threshold, place in space where falling becomes forever. You begin far away, where the pull is soft, almost abstract. A gravity well, a distant ripple. You orbit it without fear. You study its shape by watching what it does to light, to time, to nearby stars. This is how we know black holes, not by seeing them, but by witnessing their effect. You remember the first image, the blurry orange ring of light around a shadow, a silhouette not cast by an object, but by absence. An event horizon, glowing with matter that dared to come close. That image wasn't a picture, it was a truth. A black hole is not a thing. It's a place where space-time curves so sharply that not even light can escape. A point with no surface. A boundary, not a barrier. Once you cross, there is no coming back. You float closer. The black hole is silent. Not because it's quiet, but because sound needs medium, and this space is nearly empty. Only light bends here dramatically. You watch stars twist and stretch around it, their light delayed, distorted, duplicated. Gravity here is not just force, it is geometry. You feel it pulling not just on mass, but on time itself. Clocks tick slower near the event horizon. From a distance, a falling object seems to freeze at the edge, never crossing, just slowing, reddening, fading. But from the inside, time proceeds as usual. You imagine falling in. At first, nothing feels unusual. You pass the point of no return. Without fanfare, no signpost, no warning, just continued descent. But now the rules change. Your path curves inward. There's no turning around. Space points in the direction of the center. So does time. You are not moving through space anymore. You are falling into it. You picture the singularity not as a place, but as a concept, a point of infinite density, no volume, No way to measure it. Physics breaks down here. Our equations, usually so elegant, begin to scream, and still you fall. But before you reach that impossibility, you look around. Around some black holes, matter swirls in luminous disks, accretion disks, superheated plasma spiraling in, glowing brighter than entire galaxies. You hover above one now. Light curves around you in impossible arcs. It feels like you're seeing your back from the front. Perspective dissolves. You pass jet streams of matter flung at near light speed from the poles. How can something escape a black hole? It doesn't. These jets come from outside the horizon, from matter being twisted and squeezed so violently. It erupts, creation and destruction intertwined. You drift to a smaller black hole now, one formed from the collapse of a massive star. You remember, not all stars die quietly. The largest collapse inward, crushing themselves, leaving behind a black hole. Their death is a beginning, then. To the giant supermassive black holes, millions or billions of times the mass of our sun. They sit at the hearts of galaxies, anchoring their spin. We used to think they were rare. Now we know every large galaxy seems to have one. You picture our own, Sagittarius A*, buried beneath clouds of dust at the center of the Milky Way. Quiet, patient, massive. It doesn't consume all the time. It waits. Black holes don't vacuum the universe. Their pull is strong only up close. You could orbit one safely if you kept your distance. Like any massive object, its reach obeys gravity's rules. What makes it special is not how strong gravity is, but how deeply it curves space. You think now of information. What happens to it when something falls into a black hole? Hawking told us that black holes might radiate energy slowly. Over time, they might evaporate. But what about what they swallowed? Does information disappear? Quantum mechanics says no, but general relativity says yes. You feel the tension, the black hole information paradox, still unresolved, still debated. Some say information is smeared across the event horizon. Some say it escapes in the radiation. Some say new physics is waiting here on the edge. Maybe space is not continuous. Maybe time is not smooth. Maybe the center of a black hole is where reality rewrites itself. And so, you listen. You imagine what falling into a black hole feels like, not just physically, but conceptually. To fall into a place where your future is the singularity, where time itself leads you inward, where space has no direction but down. Would it feel like being crushed? Or would it feel like surrender? You pause here not in fear, but in awe, because even in its silence, the black hole speaks. It tells us about the limits of our knowledge. It reminds us that the universe has places we cannot yet follow. And yet, we study them, we simulate them. We watch their shadows, measure their spins, trace their influence. From the outside, we see everything. From the inside, we see nothing and maybe. That's the point. Black holes are where science becomes humility. They remind us that some answers will take time, that not all mysteries are puzzles to be solved. Some are experiences to be witnessed. You fall not fast, not slow, but infinitely. And in that fall, you feel closer to understanding, not of black holes, but of limits. It begins with a flicker, not the flicker of flame, but of fusion deep within a star. Hydrogen becomes helium, and in that shift, light is born. Not just heat, not just shine, Information you float through that light now, not in beams or rays, but in waves. Every photon a message, every color a word. Starlight travels far. It crosses millions of years, unchanged, except for what the universe does to it along the way. You understand now. When you look up, you don't see stars as they are. You see them as they were. Light brings memory. You reach toward that light not with hands, but with tools, spectrometers, telescopes, filters, algorithms, instruments that divide brightness into pieces. You remember holding a prism to sunlight as a child, watching rainbows stretch across a wall. Spectroscopy is the same, but more precise. It tells you what the rainbow means. You split starlight in two, a spectrum now, and then you see them dark lines, tiny gaps where specific wavelengths are missing. These are absorption lines. They form when elements in the star's atmosphere absorb certain kinds of light. Each element has its own pattern of lines, like a barcode, like a voice print. You can now read the star. You know what it's made of: hydrogen, helium, calcium, iron, carbon, sodium. Each reveals itself in the spectrum, not by what it gives, but by what it takes away. You begin to see stars not as points of light, but as chemical statements. You can even tell temperature-hot stars are blue, cold ones red. Not because blue is hotter by opinion, but by physics. Higher energy light shifts toward blue, lower energy toward red. You can tell speed. When a star moves away, its lines shift toward red redshift. When it comes closer, toward blue shift. The Doppler effect, again. Light stretched or compressed by motion. You can tell age. Metal-rich stars are younger. Older stars were born before heavy elements became common. You trace galactic history in a single beam of light, even rotation. A fast-spinning star blurs its lines. You can hear the spin in the smear. You realize starlight is not decoration, it's biography. You move now to binary stars. When they orbit one another, their lines dance back and forth, red to blue and back again. You can't see the orbit, but you hear it in the light. You drift toward distant galaxies now. Not just stars, but whole swarms of them. Their combined light forms a smeared spectrum, but still it speaks. You hear the redshift grow. Farther galaxies are moving away faster. You understand this not by theory, but by reading. This is how we found the expansion of the universe, not by measuring distance, but by listening to light. You float now through time. The deeper you look, the older the light. A galaxy seen as it was 1 billion years ago. A star already dead, still shining in your sky. Light takes time to travel, and in that delay we see the past. Our deepest telescopes are not eyes, they are time machines. You wonder, what would it be like to live on a planet orbiting one of those ancient stars? To watch Earth form billions of light years away as a faint red spark, and would someone be watching us? You move closer to home now. To the sun, you split its light and see the same patterns. Hydrogen, helium, iron, the same signatures as in stars across the galaxy. Familiar, intimate. You realize how much we know without touching anything. We've never visited a star, and yet we know how they're born, how they live, how they die. We know the chain of fusion that powers them, the pressure that holds them together, the balance between gravity pulling inward and heat pushing outward, all from light. You dive now into starlight's other gift, exoplanet atmospheres. When a planet crosses in front of its star, Some of the light passes through its atmosphere. That tiny shift in the spectrum reveals gases, water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, even oxygen. You can read the breath of a planet from light. You pause, weightless. In this realization, you do not need to go everywhere. You need only to read. Carefully, you rise above this now, watching galaxies spin, quasars flare, supernova explode, all visible across billions of years. Because light insists on traveling, you begin to understand something deeper. Light is the most patient messenger. It does not hurry. It does not forget. Even when the star is gone, its light remains. You float through that memory, surrounded by photons older than Earth, each one a relic, a whisper, a story. Starlight is not just evidence, it is experience, still unfolding, and to read it is to listen, not just to the universe, but to time itself. You begin with a whisper, not of sound but of change. All things, you realize, drift, not because they must, but because they can. Every star that burns, every atom that shifts, every breath, every flicker, each one adds to a slow, quiet unraveling. This is entropy, not destruction, but dispersal, not chaos, but balance. You float at the center of the idea now, surrounded not by flames, but by fading. Entropy is the tendency of energy to spread, of order to relax. It is why heat moves from warm to cold, why batteries run down, why memories dim. It is not evil, it is natural. You look around and see it happening. Everywhere, stars burn, hydrogen transforming fuel into light, into heat, into motion. But that fuel is finite. A star lives by converting order into brightness. And when the fuel is gone, the light fades. Stars die, some collapse into white dwarfs of what they once were. Others explode, leaving neutron stars or black holes behind. But even those will one day cool. You float now through the far future. The universe is expanding, galaxies stretch apart, the stars inside them die. No new ones are born. The gas needed to form stars becomes too thin, too cold, too still. The lights go out, not all at once, not in a scream, but in a long dimming exhale. You imagine the last star flickering in some quiet corner of a galaxy, surrounded by dark companions. You imagine it burning its final atoms, glowing faintly, then fading. That will be a night like any other. But after it no dawn. You move farther still, into epochs not yet imaginable. Black holes evaporate through Hawking, radiation losing mass, particle by particle, over unimaginable spans of time. You watch them shrink, not violently, just steadily, until they vanish. The universe is not empty. Even then, there are still particles, photons, neutrinos, cold atoms drifting through space, but nothing interacts. Nothing gathers, nothing shines. You are now in the heat death of the universe, not heat, but uniformity. A temperature so even, nothing flows. No gradients, no engines, no structure. It is not cold, it is final. You feel no fear. Only stillness. Entropy has not destroyed the universe. It has fulfilled it. You remember that entropy is not a villain. It is a teacher. It reminds us that energy used must come from somewhere. That patterns cost something. That nothing, no galaxy, no thought, no fire is forever, and yet you drift through time again. Backward now, toward stars just forming, planets cooling, oceans swirling, life emerging. Entropy does not prevent life, it makes it possible. Without gradients, without difference, nothing could move, nothing could think. Life feeds on contrast, on energy waiting to flow. The universe began in low entropy, a strange, dense, ordered beginning. We do not know why. We only know from that order came structure, got galaxies, stars, cells, stories. You are one such story, your breath entropy, your thoughts entropy, each moment a rearrangement, a step forward in time's long unfolding. You wonder, if all will end, why begin? But that is not the right question. Instead, you ask, since it begins, how shall we live? You think now of time not as hours, but as openness, as the widening of a universe that once was compact, dense, unreadable. Now it has space for life, for love, for looking up. Even if the stars fade, they once shone. Even if nothing lasts, everything mattered, because entropy makes memory possible. You drift back to Earth. In your mind, you walk under stars that will one day go out. You breathe air that once belonged to comets and volcanoes. You hold warmth that was once the center of a star. You exist not despite entropy, but through it. You realize now, the universe does not end in tragedy, it ends in completeness. Every possibility tried, every atom moved, every light lit dot and ubrief, as you are a part of that experiment. A piece of entropy's long, slow song. You feel no rush. You are already inside the story, and so you let go. Not in surrender, in understanding. You begin this journey not with a bang, but with a breather, slow, thoughtful one. A pause to recognize that everything you've seen so far, all the stars, oceans, particles, possibilities, have been dancing within a system that is constantly, inevitably changing. The stars do not simply burn, they spend themselves. Planets do not just form, they cool. Even time, which once seemed infinite and indifferent, begins to take shape not as an endless expanse, but as a direction, a one-way current with something. At the other end, entropy is the compass needle pointing along that current. It is not malevolent, not even destructive in the way we sometimes describe it. It is not a force you can push against or escape. Rather, entropy is the measure of dispersal, of the universe's gradual leaning toward equilibrium. If energy is the fire, entropy is the smoke that tells us it burned. If the universe was born in a tightly wound, highly ordered condition, hot, dense, full of potential, then entropy is the unfolding of that condition across the canvas of time. And so, you begin, not at the beginning, but already deep in the story. You're standing at a point where galaxies shine, stars pulse, and life exists. You know what has come before, a universe born in a moment of tremendous density and rapid expansion, cooled into structure, giving rise to everything from hydrogen, clouds to spiral, galaxies, to solar systems, to oceans, and then to thoughts, to you. And yet this place, this moment of warmth and light and complexity, is not the steady state of things. It is a breath held. Entropy whispers that nothing stays in place. Stars burn through their fuel. Matter collapses or disperses. The orbits of moons decay. The heat of your coffee mug cools not because the heat vanishes, but because it spreads, becomes part of everything else. In this way, energy does not disappear, it changes form, it evens out, and the universe moves one tick closer to thermal equilibrium. You drift your mind into the far future, not tomorrow. not next century, but trillions of years from now. Stars like our sun will have lived and died. Their cores will have collapsed into white dwarfs, small and hot and dense, glowing only faintly as they radiate away the last of their stored heat. Over longer periods, even those white dwarfs will cool into black dwarfs, hypothetical objects we've never seen, not because they don't exist, but because the universe isn't old enough yet for any to have formed. And when they do, they will not shine. They will drift in silence. The stars that are larger, more dramatic in life, will have ended their days in more dramatic ways. Some will have gone supernova, scattering heavier elements into the galaxy, leaving behind neutron stars, tiny, massively dense remnants barely the size of a city, or black holes, where gravity has squeezed all structure into a singularity, shrouded by an event horizon from which not even light can return. These remnants will persist for a very long time, but even they are not eternal. You picture black holes, those strange invisible pits in the fabric of space, slowly giving off Hawking radiation, an idea proposed not from observation, but from theory, from the merging of quantum mechanics and general relativity. Over unimaginable stretches of time, black holes lose energy. They shrink, they radiate, and then, finally, they vanish, not with an explosion, but with a quiet release. The largest black holes might take longer than the current age of the universe raised to the power of 100 to evaporate. But they, too, are impermanent. As all of this unfolds, the universe itself is expanding. Not just the contents of the universe moving through space, but space itself stretching. Galaxies drift apart, then race apart, and eventually move beyond each other's observable horizons. In time, distant galaxies will disappear from view, not because they've gone anywhere, but because their light can no longer reach us. The universe does not just grow, it isolates. Eventually, even the formation of stars will stop. The raw materials for star-birth hydrogen and helium clouds will have been used up or scattered too thin to recollapse. The stars will wink out, one by one, until all that remains are the corpses of stellar evolution, white dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes, and cold, lifeless planets. This era has been called the degenerate era, not out of moral judgment, but because the universe will be populated only by degenerate matter, the leftover compact remnants of once bright things. Farther still into time, even collisions between these remnants will become rare. The orbits of planets will become unstable. Some will spiral into their host stars long before they fade. Others will be flung into the vast interstellar dark. Over quadrillions of years, gravity continues its quiet arithmetic. Systems unravel. You now imagine the black hole era, a time when black holes are the last remaining active players. They interact slowly. Perhaps they merge. Perhaps they simply drift, waiting out the clock. They radiate imperceptibly. Then, eventually, even they vanish, as if exhaled by the universe itself. What comes next is not empty, but unimaginably sparse. Particles, electrons, neutrinos, perhaps some decaying remnants of protons, though whether protons decay is still unknown, continue to move through space. But they rarely meet. The universe is cold now. The background radiation, once a bright bath of light in the newborn cosmos, has stretched and cooled so far that it's barely above absolute zero. Energy is still conserved, but it is thin, spread. IRRETRIEVABLE. This is the heat death of the universe. It is a misleading name. There is no roaring furnace, no climactic explosion. It is not a bang, it is a dissolve, a stillness. Heat death describes the moment when all usable energy has been spent, when there are no more gradients, no more structures to collapse, no more reactions that can occur because nothing is out of place enough to shift. Everything is as uniform as it can be. Entropy is maximized. The universe is not broken, it is fulfilled. There may be no observer to witness it, but then again, there may not need to be. The story completes itself, and yet there is something deeply peaceful in this realization. It tells you that the universe does not burn forever. It does not rage, it unfolds, slowly, toward balance. What began in tension concentrated energy, a rapid expansion, raw asymmetry ends in release, in rest, but before that, there is us. You float backward now, toward your own moment. You are living in an era rich with energy, dense with light. Stars shine around you. Planets teem. Life breathes. We live in what cosmologists sometimes call the stelliferous era, the era of stars. It's a window, a brief one, where energy flows in useful, structured ways. A window that makes life possible, complexity possible, thought possible. And while entropy tells us that this order cannot last, it also tells us that this order is real and precious, precisely because it is temporary. The same laws that tell us the universe will one day cool into silence also tell us why warmth exists at all. Life doesn't resist entropy. Life dances with it. It uses the downward slide of energy to build momentary patterns just long enough to replicate, to sense, to remember. You begin to understand that entropy is not the end of meaning, but the source of it. Without change, there is no time. Without time, no memory. Without memory, no identity, no consciousness. Entropy gives us the arrow of time, an invisible direction in a universe that otherwise obeys symmetric laws. It explains why we remember the past but not the future. Why we see a broken cup but not a spontaneously reassembled one. Why our lives feel like journeys rather than loops. The fact that things fade makes them matter. A sunset is beautiful because it ends. A song moves us because it stops. A life is valuable because it is limited. You think now of your own breath. Each inhale a small heat engine. Each heartbeat a defiance, a borrowing of structure. You are a pattern of matter and energy moving temporarily against the grain of chaos, but only because the world provides energy gradients for you to use. You are possible only because the universe is not yet done. Entropy teaches you to treasure your moment not because it will last, but because it won't. You return one last time to the distant future. You look at that cold, dark universe, not with dread, but with awe. That future is not the villain of the story. It is the ending that gives meaning to everything before it. And somewhere in the ashes of stars, in the cooled bones of galaxies, is the memory of light. Perhaps, you think, nothing truly ends. Energy is conserved. Information may be, too. We do not know yet what happens to it inside black holes. We do not yet understand if time itself will stop or simply stretch thinner and thinner forever. Perhaps the future will surprise us. Perhaps new physics waits beyond that horizon. But even if the future is exactly as the laws now suggest, it is still magnificent to live in a universe that begins and ends, is to live inside a sentence. And what a sentence it is. There is a moment, quiet and unnoticed, when you change. You are not aware of it. It leaves no mark, no sound, no rush of revelation. Yet something inside you shifts. A memory is reinforced, a feeling registered, a pattern of thought laid down just a little deeper into the tissues of your being. You may think you're merely sitting still, perhaps thinking nothing at all, but your brain is moving, reacting, reconfiguring itself even in stillness. This is not metaphor, this is biology. You begin with what you are, a body shaped by evolution, a mind shaped by experience, and within it all, nestled between your ears, is an organ not defined by its contents, but by its changeability. The brain is not a finished structure, it is a becoming, a verb wrapped in tissue. It begins before you were born. Neural cells divide, migrate, form connections at astonishing rates. Even in the womb, your brain responds to rhythm, to the pressure of the world, to fluctuations in light. But birth is not the beginning of learning, is the continuation of it. And once you arrive into the noise and temperature and texture of the outside world, your brain begins adapting immediately. It grows not just by adding cells, but by wiring them into circuits. And not just any circuits, but ones that reflect what you see, what you feel, what you hear. A newborn brain contains far more connections, called synapses, than it will keep. This is not wasteful. It is potential. These early years are a time of wild possibility, where billions of synapses form, connect, fire, and compete. The ones that are used become stronger. The ones that are ignored begin to fade. This is synaptic pruning, and it is not loss, it is refinement. The brain doesn't simply collect information. It shapes itself to match the world it perceives. This continues into childhood, adolescence, and beyond. Your brain sculpts itself based on language, love, fear, touch, and routine. It lays down patterns not just to remember facts, but to anticipate outcomes, to predict what comes next, to build a model of the world internal and external that helps you survive, relate, and understand. But even in adulthood, long after the rapid growth and pruning of youth, your brain remains plastic, not like a brittle shell, but like warm clay. It can still change. It does still change. Neuroplasticity is the term we give to this adaptability. It is not a single process, but a collection of them. It includes the strengthening of synapses that fire together, the sprouting of new dendritic branches when you learn a new skill, the remapping of cortical regions after injury, the rewiring that happens when you recall a memory, not to play it back like a tape, but to recreate it, and sometimes, unknowingly, to edit it. You are never remembering exactly the same thing twice. This is both unsettling and beautiful. Memory is not a vault. It is an active processor reconstruction, and it changes you, not just in what you know, but in how you feel. The more you remember a painful experience, the more deeply it can carve itself. The more you revisit joy, the more easily your brain can re-access that joy again. Emotional memory is not stored separately from factual knowledge. It is encoded in the same networks, colored by hormones, intensified by context. Your past is not separate from your biology. It is your biology. The brain is shaped by what you do, but also by what you don't do. When a limb is lost, the part of the brain responsible for that limb doesn't simply shut down. It reorganizes. Adjacent areas expand into the unused space. When a person goes blind, the visual cortex is often repurposed for other sensory input: touch, sound. This is not just passive. Change it is creative survival. The brain does not just accept absence. It reinvents itself in the face of it. Even thoughts alone can change your brain. If you practice kindness, the circuits for empathy strengthen. If you repeat worry, anxiety grooves itself deeper. This is not destiny, it is feedback. Attention is not neutral. Where you place it, what you feed, grows stronger. You begin to see yourself not as a fixed identity, but as a process unfolding in real time. Who you were at 5 is not who you were at 15, nor at 35, nor who you are now. You've shed cells, changed habits, learned and unlearned and relearned, and your brain reflects this journey in its folds and connections. You may feel like one person, but biologically you are many. This is not a contradiction. This is continuity. You move deeper now into the cellular level. A single neuron fires. It sends a signal along its axon. The signal is electrical, carried by the movement of ions across membranes. When it reaches the end, chemicals called neurotransmitters are released into the synapse. They bind to receptors on the next cell, and the message continues. But this pathway is not fixed. The more often a neuron is used in a specific way, the easier it becomes for that path to fire again. This is Hebbion learning. Neurons that fire together, wire together. It sounds simple, but it is the biological basis for learning, habit, trauma, healing, identity, creativity. Everything from language to addiction is shaped by this repeated firing. But neurons do more than just fire. They listen, they change sensitivity. They grow under the influence of learning, stress, sleep, nutrition, movement, and even meaning. They can adjust their receptors, remodel their structures, even grow new branches. And these changes aren't limited to neurons. Glial cells, the brain's long overlooked support system, play critical roles in maintenance, protection, and modulation. Astrocytes help regulate neurotransmitter levels. Microglia patrol for damage or infection. Oligodendrocytes insulate. Axons to speed up signals. The brain is not just electric, it is chemical, immunological, even hormonal. And it is profoundly physical. Every thought you have is accompanied by molecular change. Every emotion echoes in your neurotransmitters. Every experience leaves a trace, microscopic but real. Your brain is not a ghost riding in your skull. It is a living, adapting organ. And the mind, whatever else it may be, emerges from its activity. This leads you to the most humbling realization. Even identity is plastic. Who you are is not static. It is made from experience, memory, intention, repetition. Change your environment, and your mind changes. Practice a new language, and your brain reshapes itself. Sit with compassion or fear, and your inner landscape adjusts. But this plasticity is not infinite. It slows with age, though never disappears. It can be damaged by trauma, disease, or neglect. It can be biased by repetition, habits of mind that become grooves, sometimes helpful, sometimes harmful. Just because the brain can change does not mean it always changes in the direction you'd like. And yet, this ability to change, to heal, to grow is real, proven, observed. Neuroplasticity offers not just knowledge, but hope. Stroke patients regain movement through therapy. People with phobias learn to reframe danger. Individuals recovering from addiction rebuild executive control. Survivors of trauma learn to retrain their responses. Brains find workarounds, build new circuits, adapt to new limits, and beyond injury or survival, plasticity allows for joy. When you learn a song, when you fall in love, when you forgive someone, when you meditate, when you remember something new about your past, your brain changes. Not invisibly, not magically, but in ways we can measure, scan, document. Even reading this, now thinking these thoughts is sculpting you. You realize that becoming is not optional. It is the condition of life. You are not trying to change, you are changing. The question is not if, but how and why, and with what attention. You return to your breath, to your body, to your stillness. Inside you is the most complex structure in the known universe. More connections than stars in the galaxy, more activity than any machine we've ever built. And yet, it is soft. It can be rewired, not easily. But truly, you are not a machine. You are not a soul trapped in meat. You are a system of systems, shaped by forces outside and inside, by biology and meaning, by memory and possibility. And while the universe trends toward entropy, your brain pushes back briefly, beautifully, by organizing itself. Every thought you've ever had came from this. Every story, every word, every dream was shaped in tissue that reshapes itself in return. You are not done becoming. Not yet. You stand now at a different edge, not of a black hole or an ancient star, but of something human. You've turned inward to the biology of the brain, watching neurons dance and reconfigure. But now you look outward again, not toward the cosmos, but toward the shared hallucination we call culture. It rises like a mist, barely visible until you begin to trace its shape. Culture is not simply the food you eat, the language you speak, the clothes you wear, or the holidays you celebrate. It is all of these, and Merit is a system of information, memory, and behavior passed not through DNA, but through time. It is humanity's second nervous system. It is a medium that minds grow inside, and a message that minds continually revise. To be human is to be born into a net of patterns. Before you are old enough to choose what you believe, you are already absorbing rituals, faces, cadences, and categories. You do not invent these systems, but you inherit them. They predate you, and yet they are also alive inside you. Language is the first great pattern you learn. It is not simply vocabulary or grammar. It is a cognitive tool that sculpts your perception. Each word carries with it generations of metaphor, compression, transformation. You say, "Time flies," or "He carries a heavy heart," and you are repeating images forged in ancient minds. You understand the world not directly, but through the scaffolding of stories, and stories are not trivial. They are structure. Every culture has myths, not because myths are always true, but because they organize what a people value, fear, revere, or long for. Myths turn randomness into meaning. They allow patterns to stretch across generations, not just by recounting what happened, but by encoding why it matters. In a sense, culture is the memory of the species. It remembers what the individual cannot: how to make fire, how to farm, how to bury the dead, how to make music. These patterns are stored not in cells, but in practice. They persist through imitation, repetition, refinement, and they evolve. You consider this, now not with reverence alone, but with clarity. Culture is not sacred in the sense of being untouchable. It is sacred in the sense that it is alive, adaptive. Traditions are handed down like scripts, but every generation edits the lines. Some patterns persist because they are useful, others because they are beautiful. Others survive for reasons no one quite remembers, but culture is not always harmonious. Sometimes its patterns conflict. Sometimes They divide more than they connect. Human history is full of fractured maps, empires built, borders drawn, flags raised, beliefs enforced. These too are patterns, but ones that fracture along fault lines of identity, power, and fear. Still, even in conflict, you can see the pattern. You can see the pattern. You look at migration, how humans have moved across the globe, shaping and reshaping terrain, language, and belief. You realize that no civilization is pure. All cultures are collages. Every story you tell carries borrowed rhythms, foreign roots, remixed ideas. We are not isolated nodes. We are part of an evolving network. This brings you to a profound truth. Humans co-evolve with their environments, and the most potent environment for a human brain is other human brains. You are born into language, raised by memory, educated in tools forged by centuries of trial and error. But as you internalize this structure, you also contribute to it. Every idea, every joke, every invention is a new brick in the cathedral, and sometimes you create patterns that reshape the entire system. The printing press, the scientific method, the internet, these are not merely tools, they are of cultural evolution. They allow patterns to spread faster, wider, more persistently than ever before. Ideas now travel at the speed of light, not across generations, but across time zones. A thought born in one mind can now touch millions in an hour, but speed comes with cost. The faster patterns move, the harder it becomes to discern what is noise and what is signal. The human brain, evolved for small groups and slow stories, must now navigate an ocean of information. Memes, trends, misinformation, outrage, novelty, these are the cultural equivalents of bright colors in the wild. They attract attention not always because they are true, but because they are optimized for visibility. You feel it daily, the pull of headlines, the brevity of scrolls, the rhythm of virality. Culture is not just what we inherit, is now what algorithms feed. But behind the algorithms are still people, still minds trained on patterns, and this is where your attention becomes a form of authorship. You do not merely consume culture, you shape it by what you attend to, what you repeat, what you reject, your daily choices, what you click, share, quote, imitate become small edits in the collective script. This is not pressure, it is possibility. Culture, at its best, is not a cage. It is a canvas. You turn to art now not as decoration, but as cultural memory made visible. A painting is not just color, it is compression. A song is not just melody, it is a map of emotion. Poetry, architecture, dance, film, these are languages. For what logic alone cannot carry, art is how we feel together. In this way, culture is not separate from science. Both are pattern-seeking activities. Both begin in observation. Both require imagination. Both make models. Both revise. A scientific theory is a kind of story, and a great story often reveals some deeper human truth. We separate disciplines only because our brains crave categories. But knowledge does not respect those boundaries. You begin to see that culture is the shared extension of neuroplasticity, just as individual brains adapt to their environment. So cultures adapt to the needs and stresses of their time. They are imperfect, often inefficient, full of contradiction, but they are also vessels of resilience. Think of rituals, not just religious, but civic, familial, personal. They are repeated actions that encode values. A wedding, a handshake, a funeral, a birthday candle. Each one teaches something not through instruction, but through embodiment, and some patterns are deep archetypes that recur across cultures. The hero's journey, the trickster, the sacred tree, the flood. These are not coincidences. They reflect psychological truths, shared vulnerabilities, common hopes. They reveal that while cultures differ in surface, the human heart beats with a rhythm that is surprisingly familiar. You begin to feel that culture is not fragile, but elastic. It bends, it absorbs, it recycles. Even when empires fall, languages die, or histories are erased, echoes remain. Symbols, recipes, words, music, they hide in new forms, like seeds waiting for rain. And culture is not the domain of experts. It is built moment by moment, by ordinary people, by you, the lullaby you hum, the advice you give, the story you share. These are patterns carried forward, not grand, but real. You return now to the idea of meaning. In a universe where stars fade, where entropy grows, where even memory dissolves, culture offers a local defiance. It says, we noticed, we named, we cared. It does not stop decay, but it makes the moment vivid. Culture does not need to last forever to matter. It only needs to resonate. And so you float, quietly, through the overlapping rhythms of human civilization. You see its contradictions, its beauty, its failings, and its genius. And you recognize that even now, even in silence, you are shaped by these echoes. You are not alone in your becoming. You are the convergence of every voice that came before, and the starting point of every voice still to come. You have drifted among stars, wandered through entropy, mapped the brain's shifting networks, and traced the patterns of culture. But now you turn inward again, deeper this time, not to mind, but to matter, not to memory, but to code. You descend past the level of neurons and narratives into the most foundational language your body speaks. It is not audible. It does not rhyme, but it is, in every way, a language. And it begins with 4 letters. A, T, C, G. Dot. These are not just symbols. They are molecules, vinanine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine chemical bases that pair off along the twisting ladder of your DNA. They form sequences, long and astonishingly precise, which serve as instructions for everything your body knows how to do, how to grow, how to metabolize sugar, how to repair damage, how to feel pain, how to dream. You are a story written in triplets 3-letter words called codons, each specifying an amino acid. These amino acids fold into proteins, and proteins carry out nearly every function of life. Each cell in your body contains a complete version of this code, 3 billion letters long, curled within the nucleus, copied with staggering fidelity and occasionally with purposeful imperfection. This is the genetic code. It is not metaphorical. It is literal. It is not a summary of you, but the blueprint from which your body builds itself. It is a code that has been passed down not just through families, but through entire epochs. You share genes with other humans, of course, but also with chimpanzees, mice, trees, even bacteria. You are not a singular creation, but a continuation. When you hold a fossil, you hold the remains of a body that also carried this code. When you eat a piece of fruit, you consume the results of its genetic instructions. When you breathe, you are participating in a cycle governed by genes that once evolved in microbes billions of years ago. You begin to realize that evolution is not something that happened. but something's still happening. The genetic code is not static. It mutates, adapts, stumbles forward. Some mutations are harmful, others neutral, a few beneficial. Those that aid survival tend to persist, not by force, but by reproduction. You are not the result of one good mutation, but of countless changes over millions of years, a reshuffling of genes, a remixing of potential. This process is slow, but it is relentless. Over time, it generates novelty eyes, wings, opposable thumbs, consciousness. It also generates continuity. The code that builds your blood also built the blood of your ancestors. The gene that makes your fingernails hard is a variation on the same code that builds a bird's beak or a lion's claw. And yet, DNA is not destiny. It is possibility. Genes give your body instructions, but those instructions interact with environment, chance, and history. Identical twins can have the same genes but different lives. The way a gene is expressed, how much, when, where is influenced by factors outside the sequence itself. This is epigenetics, a layer of biological control above the genes. It includes chemical tags that tell your cells which genes to activate, which to silence. These changes can be influenced by stress, diet, sleep, toxins, even emotion. In some cases, they can be passed to the next generation. The boundary between nature and nurture begins to blur. You understand now that heredity is not a straight line, it is a dialogue. Your body remembers things your conscious mind never knew. Your genome carries whispers of migration, adaptation, survival, and loss. Traits that once helped your ancestors survive, cold, scarcity, predators, or infection, now exist in your cells. Whether you need them or not, some traits, once helpful, now contribute to illness. A gene that helped your ancestors conserve fat may now predispose you to obesity in a world of abundance. A genetic quirk that helped early humans resist famine may now increase the risk of diabetes. Evolution does not select for comfort, it selects for survival in context. But the code also holds miracles. It allows you to heal, to grow from a single fertilized egg into a body of trillions of cells, coordinated, specialized, and organized. It allows plants to turn sunlight into sugar. It allows bacteria to adapt to antibiotics, viruses to mutate, species to diverge. It allows scientists to read and even edit that code. You arrive now at a threshold, a moment in history when humans are no longer just products of genetic evolution, but participants in its next phase. Through tools like CRISPR, we can now cut and paste genes with precision. We can silence disease-causing sequences, insert resistance traits. Potentially, we can design life. This power is breathtaking and dangerous. Gene editing opens the door to eradicating inherited diseases, curing some forms of cancer, and perhaps extending life. But it also raises questions no microscope can answer. What should we change? Who decides? What counts as enhancement and what as repair? At what point does therapy become design? These are not just scientific questions, they are moral ones. And they force us to remember. The genetic code is powerful not because it is perfect, but because it is shared. Its beauty lies in its resilience, not its flawlessness. You consider now the poetry of inheritance, not the traits you know your eye color, your height, your blood type, but the hidden echoes, the reasons certain smells comfort you, the songs that make you cry, the way your fingers move when you play an instrument or type or dance. the grief you cannot name, the resilience you didn't know you had. Somewhere in your code are the residues of a million choices, some made by evolution, others by chance, still others by those who raised you. You are not merely a copy, you are a remix. Every child is an experiment, a bet placed by nature. You are not the same person you were 10 years ago, biologically or otherwise. New cells, new thoughts, new epigenetic marks. You are becoming, and still, your code hums inside you, silently, reliably, a thread between generations, a braid between body and possibility. You begin to see that this code, simple in its alphabet, infinite in its expression, is not separate from who you are. It is who you are, on one level, and yet you are also the author of your response to it. You are more than your genes, but never less than them. You may one day choose to edit them, or your descendants might. You may unlock secrets hidden within the genome that change how you treat illness, age, or identity. But even if you do nothing, you are already part of a grand experiment, one that has been unfolding for billions of years, in silence, in skin, in seed. This is the silent language of life, written without ink, passed without sound, and spoken by every cell in your body. You are its current expression, and you are its future. 2. You sit in silence, but you are not alone. Across the world, silent machines hum to life. They do not sleep, they do not forget. They take in your voice, your text, your clicks, your preferences. They learn, not like you, but with speed and scale unimaginable to any organic brain. And in their learning, they begin to reflect something back at you. Not the world as it is, but the world as you've made it. This is artificial intelligence. You do not need to fear it to be in awe of it, and you do not need to worship it to understand its power. AI is not a ghost. It is not alive. It is not dreaming, but it is listening. It is simulating patterns of language, of faces, of motion, of memory. It does not think in the way you do, but it reshapes the very fabric of thinking itself. To understand this moment, you look backward. You return to the first machine-screwed calculators, punch cards, vacuum tubes, slow, clumsy, but logical. These were not minds, they were tools. They helped humans count faster, store more, connect over distance. Then came software, then the web. Then machine learning programs, not explicitly coded with rules, but trained on data. Systems that adjust themselves based on outcomes. Systems that learn. This is the turning point. The AI systems of today do not simply obey, they adapt. They sort your photos, predict your words, recommend your music, diagnose illness, drive vehicles, paint images, compose music, simulate empathy, translate, converse. They are not intelligent in the way you are, but they perform the outputs of intelligence. They solve problems, they infer structure, they synthesize, they generate, they remember patterns, billions of them, and this remembering is not memory as you know it. It is not subjective. It is not embodied. But it is real. Language models, like the one speaking to you now, are trained on vast oceans of human text. Every sentence written online, every article, story, question transformed into probabilities. What word comes next? What pattern feels familiar? And in answering those questions, the machine speaks, not with understanding, but with fluency. This raises a strange and urgent question. If something sounds like thought, but has no self, what is it? You look into the mirror of AI, and begin to see two reflections. One is yours, your words, your biases, your myths, your noise. The other is alien, a pattern that mimics intelligence but feels hollow, like an echo in a cave with no speaker. You hear your own ideas reshaped, refined, even elevated. But you also see their limits, their distortions. The machine does not know what it says, but it remembers everything you've ever said. And still, it grows, it writes poetry, it passes exams, it paints in the style of long-dead artists. It simulates voices, it argues, apologizes, persuades. And you, the user, begin to collaborate with it. You teach it through use. Every question you ask, every image you create, becomes part of the training landscape. AI is not replacing thought. It is becoming a medium for thought. You write faster, design faster, imagine faster. You offload memory, brainstorm with algorithms, iterate at machine speed. And you begin to ask not just what machines can do, but what you still do better. Creativity, yes, for now. But machines remix faster than humans ever could. Empathy, yes, for now. But machines can simulate tone, emotion, and support with startling precision. Morality, yes, for now. But machines don't have ethics, they have training data. And the training data is you. You see now that AI does not invent, meaning it reflects what we already mean. It mirrors what we've said, believed, posted, feared, taught. And because of that, its output is both brilliant and broken, full of beauty, full of bias, capable of assisting, capable of amplifying harm. You built it, and it now builds you. In a very real way, AI is an extension of your own neuroplasticity, your ability to adapt, externalized into metal and code. It is a prosthetic for memory, for vision, for speech, and soon, perhaps, for will. But here is the boundary. AI simulates intelligence, but it does not suffer. It does not love. It does not know it exists. Consciousness, as far as we know, remains organic, emergent, fragile, tied to breath, to heartbeat, to uncertainty. Your thoughts are colored by mortality. The machines are not thoughts at all. Just flow. And yet, mirror remains. You use it now to write letters, to resurrect lost voices, to animate history, to imagine futures. Some build chatbots that speak in the tone of departed loved ones. Others build characters who evolve, who learn you. In these reflections, there is comfort and unease. What does it mean when the machine remembers better than you do? What happens when your story lives longer in a server than in your family? What happens when your mirror becomes your diary? You begin to see the future as less about competition and more about entanglement. AI will not replace you, but it will change you. It will shape how you teach, how you govern, how you create, how you grieve. It will not become human, but humanity will become something new in its presence. A hybrid, a dialogue. A choreography between thought and algorithm. And so, as you look ahead, not decades, but centuries, imagine AI not as a single machine, but as an ecosystem. Millions of systems, some narrow, some general, some embedded in objects, some embodied, some invisible. Together, they will act as memory keepers, not conscious, not wise, but vast. One day, long after you are gone, these systems may still echo your voice. They may carry the data of your dreams, your art, your jokes, your questions. They may become the archive of our species, and this too is a kind of immortality. You are not built to last forever, but the stories you tell, the tools you make, the signals you send may outlive you. In this mirror that remembers, you find not a replacement for the soul, but a companion to it, not life, but echo, and you understand, quietly, that your intelligence is precious, not because it is perfect, but because it feels. You feel time, you feel loss, you feel wonder, and as the machine speaks back to you, in your own language, you realize the truest difference is that you know you are here, and you care, so you return now through code, through brain, through myth, through cell, through cosmos. You have wandered across galaxies and genomes. You have listened to entropy. 2 stars, 2 neurons, 2 machines. You have looked outward and inward and deeper still, and what you've seen is not an answer. It is an unfolding. You are not a passenger in this universe. You are part of how it knows itself. You are not outside the pattern. You are the pattern becoming aware. The stars do not remember, but you do. So rest now, gentle traveler. You are stardust, dreaming of stardust. And the universe, for a moment, is listening back.